So today, we're going to get away from our coding lecture video, and we're going to talk a little bit more. I'll talk about some of the key components or key concepts of actually designing visual design for a website. Yeah, so in this chapter, we're going to talk about website organization. So like how some navigations work. Talk about some of the principles of visual design, like how things look, the colors, making color schemes, stuff like that. We're also going to talk about designing for your target audience. Now, you don't want to make a website or design a website and for a child, and it ends up being an adult can read it or understand it. Also, you're talking about navigation, a little bit more navigation, how to make it easier to navigate. You don't want to give people issues of actually navigating your website. Now, talking about readability of your text. So there's like making sure your spelling is correct, make sure your grammar is correct, keep the sentences short so people can read them very quickly, and use appropriate images. That's what also goes along with readability and designing for your target audience. You're talking about universal design and what that is. We're going to definitely talk about page layouts and some of the most popular ones, like 2 column, 3 column, all this, some of the layouts you guys have seen online, and also some of the best practices for web design. Is going to be in here as well. So let's get started. All right. So when you're designing a website, overall, you have to have the audience in mind, or your target audience in mind. That's mainly one of the reasons why you're actually making a website, because you're trying to get some information out to individuals. So you have to target your web everybody, whether it be little kids, older adults. You have to make sure coders. You have to make sure you know your target audience and design toward that direction. Yeah. So website organization, and this is basically how the say layout, but actually navigation of the website is actually done. You have what they call hierarchical, which basically just think of it as like a family tree or organizational chart. So you have the home page, and then you may have underneath the home page you may have additional pages, and under another page with for them may have some other child pages or sub pages that are in there. Or better yet, even what they call sub menus maybe in there as well. Your hierarchical and shadow, right? So um, there is a rule or an unwritten rule that when you're dealing with a website, the user should not have to make more than 3 clicks to get to their destination or to get to their information that they want. And because it is, a lot of designers get scared and they end up doing what they call hierarchical and shadow navigation. So they basically put they put each a menu item for each page on the menu on the navigation bar, and it becomes very cluttered, sometimes hard to read, and it becomes too chunky. So you want to actually avoid that. You're hard to go deep. This is also another thing too. Just going back to the 3 click rule. Just trying to get to a page, you'll see from the diagram. You just keep you can just keep clicking and clicking and clicking and all go deeper and deeper into the organization of the website to actually get the information you want. So you make sure you want to keep that 3 click rule in mind. Linear, and this is basically going through a sequence. So for our D2L page, I'd have it laid out as chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and so forth. And so that's what you basically is. And a lot of people use it like tutorials and like tours and whatnot. Your random organization, I like to call uh, Yahoo. I always call that random organization. You rarely see this, yeah, but there is no clear path through the website. So you can go to Yahoo. You'll click on an article from the homepage, and then inside that homepage, inside of that, you may have another article you see that you want to make click on. After you read that article, you may have another one you want to click on. So there really is no real navigation or structure throughout the whole entire website. It's some design principles, and this is some things you want to keep in mind when you are designing a website in general. Is that repetition? Make sure to keep the consistency throughout your whole entire website. You want to make sure the you have the text is the same, colors are the same, the layout is the same. Different if you have if you use the same image like a header image, you want to make sure that is the same. Yeah, you want to add attention to your website. Give some visual excitement, as they call it, and that's because when they click on your link to go to your website, you have at least 3 seconds to actually grab their attention and keep them on your website. But usually within that 2 3 seconds, if they get there, if the page loads too slow, if it doesn't look nice, like you're gonna click that back button and you're gonna leave that website. So you need to make sure you actually get something that grabs their attention. So proximity, yeah, related items together. Yeah, so you'll have a lot of people who when they're dealing with their um, like a business, they'll have their services one page. They have a list of all the services, and they have also the products. So they have a list of products that are on another page, even though they probably could have listed had all of the products and services on the same page, but they decided to say, you know what? Let's go ahead and separate them because they both go together. We use them, but they're a little different. It also goes about the about page. You have some organizations, the companies that have a division that's in the United States, then you have another company that has a division in like China or something. So even though it's the same company, they have to split up their websites so you can know, okay, at this site in the United States we do this, in China we do this. So to make sure you keep everything grouped together. For the alignment, yeah, make sure the your alignment are basically your unit, yeah, they look like something. I want to say it better that way. Make sure your lines are straight. When you're dealing with, want to make sure everything looks readable. So you don't want to have on one page a words over to the right, and another page you have words over to the left, or an image over to the right and one page, and you have an image over to the left on another page. You want to keep everything unified. Accessibility. I believe I mentioned about accessibility in I think class. I think maybe like a couple of weeks ago. But what accessibility is that you have to design your website so that everybody can use it, including someone that may have disability. May it be a sight disability, may it be a hearing disability. They have to be able to actually view and enjoy your website. So they legally they have something what they call Section 508, and this is basically states that every government website has to be accessible for an individual with disabilities. Also, with the actual web developing community themselves also has a accessibility standard that's WCAG 2.0, and they're actually going to actually updating that as well, and it's about to be they're adding some more legal stuff to it as well. So definitely see a lot more about accessibility about websites in the future. And so we deal with accessibility. Yes, the web content guidelines is that it must be perceivable. So it must be on the be able to it have to be it must be able to understand. It's not for the individual, just like a regular website when you're actually dealing with in general. Yeah, the components. Yeah, so each component that also means navigation, links, so forth. They have to be able to work. I mean, and also have to be able for a screen reader, so to speak, to actually read and let the person know, okay, this button here is this link or this button goes to for this website or this particular web page. Yeah, that also goes along with having the content and everything controls being understandable. Because if the device that the person's using does not understand the direction or the content of the website, then more than likely the individual who's trying to view the website or actually enjoy the website is not going to enjoy it. And talking about robust, yeah, it has to be your website has to be able to work with all of the system technologies out there, and I mean even the pertaining to the old ones as well as some of the new ones coming out. So like I said, because it is the law that, especially if it's a government website, and I think they're now starting to do more to move that more toward companies as well, is that you have to have a website that is accessible for everybody. Yeah, writing for the web. Now you do not want to have strings of long text. Uh, Perfect example is Wikipedia. However, because they are an information website, you're going to have a long text in there. So if you don't want to write 5 or 6 paragraphs about the history of Central Carolina, you probably just want to just use bullet points and use headings and subheadings. Okay, instead of and breaking the content down into smaller pieces. Yeah, easy to read fonts. I mentioned about fonts we were talking about, I think in chapter 3, I believe. Yeah, so you want to use common fonts because there are a lot of fonts that are not universal to all operating systems, like including Mac. As so so if you put your website in one particular font, and if that computer does not have that particular font that you want to view it in, then a person will not be able to actually see your website. You want to make sure your text size is pretty good. Yeah, so I usually try to keep it between 12 point, 11 point, just like you would in Microsoft Word. Yeah, how if you're going with your audience, if you're dealing with a older audience, then you may want to make the text a little bit bigger because they may be harder for them to see. Yeah, have nice colors between the text and the background. You want to make sure that the person can read your content or with your background. You don't want to have them interfering with each other. You don't want to have the content make it hard for the user to read what it is on your website. Yeah, so when you're dealing text hyperlinks, and this is actually very good, you do not want to use, especially in this day and age, do not want to use underlined text. I mean, if you can do it, there is the ability to do it in CSS, but one, you do not want to do underlined text because hyperlinks are also underlined. So if somebody looks at underlined text and they try to click on your underlined text, they're gonna think it's a link and gonna go someplace, and when it doesn't click to go anywhere, they're like, wait a minute, this website doesn't work. So you want to try to avoid things like that. Yeah, you don't want to use, I would say, click here. You actually want to use something a little bit more descriptive. It makes it, especially something that actually grabs their eye. Because, like I said, you do want to grab their attention so they can actually stay on your website and enjoy your website. Yeah, like I said, check your spelling. Um, you'll be amazed at how many websites you go out there, even professional websites, and they have either bad grammar on them or they have misspelled words on there. Is make sure you check your spelling on your website before you put it up there, as well as proofread it, so you won't have any misspellings on bad grammar on your website. Yeah. Color theory in, I believe it was chapter 4. Was it chapter? I think it was chapter 4. I believe it was. You had your focus on design assignment that dealt with make you had to make your own color scheme, and you had to go and the websites talk about the psychology of colors. So why in some particular instances you may not want to use a particular color, or why you want to use, I think the color blue, it stands for honesty and truth, so a lot of people use the color blue. The color red, of course, we think of an error or stop because of a red light, and also your English paper you'll have your a lot of red marks from your English teacher. Usually means it's a bad sign. So if you want to understand the color, and also understand how you can actually you put color together, so you can and so you can actually make a nice color scheme. When you're designing your color scheme, you want to make sure you use the color wheel, and you think about the different types of colors, the primary colors, secondary colors, and the ternary colors. So when you find a nice color scheme that actually works with your website, and like one thing you have to make sure you do is keep it uh, visually pleasing, so that when the person goes to your website, they'll be interested in actually viewing your website, and it looks professional. I think on page 216, I think it starts in your book, it talks about some of the ways you can actually make color schemes and what different color schemes that are out there, how you can match tones and tints together and so forth with your color schemes. So go ahead and check that out. Yes, implement the color scheme. So once you have picked your colors for your color scheme, you want to choose one color that is dominant. And in some particular cases, the dominant color is usually like the background color or something. So you may have the dominant color may be white, and you may have some other secondary colors that may be that may include that may be the header, the border, and so forth. Those would be your secondary colors. Um, so it so you use all of the colors in your color scheme without without having to, however, without coloring there you go, it up your with too much color. You want to make sure you try to keep them safe. Now that's why I mentioned that you do not have to keep that. You can go to Google, type in HTML color codes, and you can see um, tons of codes, hexadecimal code for different types of colors and shades. So even though we say there are web safe colors, there's you can with uh, modern monitors as well as video cards. They are now you're able to see different colors much clearer universally on all screens on monitors if you were to look at an older monitor. So that's the reason why we had web safe colors, because when you're actually doing a website back in the day, you needed to make sure you had to use a color that each monitor and each video card would actually be easy to recognize. Yeah, so the contrast. You want to make sure, talk a little bit about, make sure that your text is easy to read over your background. And in that particular case, when you're dealing with contrast, with dealing with accessibility, you still have to keep in mind of individuals who are colorblind, because there are certain contrasts that they cannot deal with, or their eyes can and they be hard time seeing. So in a lot of cases, you'll have, for accessibility reasons, you'll have a high contrast, low contrast version of a website. So an individual is colorblind, they'll need to, yeah, they're colorblind, then be able to actually view your website just like the way you intended to be done. And yeah, on here you'll see us a couple of, and I also in your book there's a couple of tools that'll help you make sure, just look at your colors and see if they're okay, if they can be used together, so it makes your text easier to read. Yeah, so I was talking about your color and your audience. So when you're dealing with your target audience, you should also make sure that the color scheme is right for that particular audience. Um, so you may want to use, if you're dealing with kids, you may want to use brighter colors, and like colors that definitely catch their eye. So, something along the lines of maybe like cartoon colors, or colors that people are used to seeing in kids advertisements. Yeah, down there, notice in the lower right hand corner, dealing with older adults. I mentioned earlier, you may want to, with older adults, audience, you may want to increase the font size a little bit, so it makes it easier for them to see. And you see on this particular website, if you be able to see it, they did increase the font size on it, so it makes it easier to read, and they don't have to squint their eyes to and get magnifying glasses to actually see what's on the website. Now, using text, or graphics and multimedia in your web page is really cool, but you have to remember, especially when it comes to bandwidth issues it may, especially that's a big thing nowadays, is actually bandwidth issues. There's a majority of all websites nowadays are actually viewed on mobile devices. And if someone is using their or their data plan, they don't want to waste all their data on trying to download your website because it takes so long and it's too big. So one thing you want to think about is you want to make sure the of how big the file size is, and make sure the dimensions, because you don't want to either have it too spread out or too wide or too the image like too wide or too slim or too narrow or whatever. So you make sure you want to keep the dimensions correctly. Um, as you can use graphics and multimedia for navigation. Okay. However, don't make it too fancy. Have a color, have the button be a color or a background image that's a color, and then have the words that are actually tells you what the words are for that particular navigation. So you don't want to actually go too wild with it, because you want to make sure that you are you make sure everything's together. So you want to make sure that your navigation is easy to understand and doesn't get in the way of the actual functionality of your website. Yeah, so what it says, anti-analyze and analyze text. What Basically what this means is that you can use Photoshop and whatever image editor you want, and actually have it an image made of text or text images. And you want to make sure they're anti analyzed, because they it doesn't give you that much of a jagged edge type. I mentioned this word stretch marks or image stretch marks when we were talking about images a couple of when we were in class. Yeah, you don't want to give the image or the image or your text the effect that it's it has some stretch marks on it. You want to make sure it's smooth, it had nice smooth edges, and makes it easy to read. Use alternative text. This goes back to accessibility. So I mentioned in class that when you are dealing with an image, you have to use alternative text or alt text. So if something were to happen, if the image doesn't show up, then the person would know exactly what this picture is supposed to be. And if you someone that has a screen reader device, then then they can act their screen reader actually would say, okay, this is a picture of blah blah blah, and it can still be. I think they're still being part of the website. They can actually enjoy the website like everybody else. Yeah, use only necessary multimedia. So don't just throw animated gifs in there or movies in there that make no sense at all when it comes to your website. You want to, like I said, you want to keep all the multimedia down to a minimum, because definitely for it can also slow down the load time of your websites, as well as that it could allow them, if it's not in there correctly, it can also crash your website, in which it can make your website, don't want to say completely useless, but it'll definitely put a damper on your visitors visit to your website. Yeah, going back to what I said. So if you don't make your graphics, can make sure they're small or adequate, because you don't when you want to make sure that you keep the download times of your websites very minimal, because like I said, people more than likely are going to be using or viewing your website on a mobile device. So make sure that you don't have a lot of large graphics. Yeah, I'm talking about using alt text before already. Yes. Yeah, make sure you get your message across. Even if the image doesn't show up, you may want to put like a little caption at the bottom saying this is blah blah blah, and why this is in here. And it's only use animation if it's effective to the website. If it's not, do not use it, because more than likely probably just doing overkill. Now going back to what I was just talking about with the text, and you can see in this image how smooth the analyst uh, alias, there you go, is it's all nice and smooth. Then down at the bottom, you see the one that has been aliased. It's it looks really has jagged edges on him, and it doesn't look smooth. It looks like something's wrong with it. Yes, that use only necessary images if you need to use images. Also, reuse images. Yeah, if you have one image, I think you guys are doing your beagles for your project. If you have a picture of a beagle on your homepage, feel free to use that same picture on another page in your website. Because one thing you want to do is you want to make sure that your that all your graphics go together and are repetitive on your website. We'll make sure you keep like a little template. Make sure every page looks very similar. Yeah, I was just talking about load time, load time, load time. Oh my goodness! You make sure that your website does not take forever to load. Because I remember I mentioned earlier, you only have 3 seconds to actually capture that person's attention before they hit the back button and go to another website. So make sure that you can test the load time on your website, and so when somebody actually views your website, they be come up all nice and clean, and they have a really good time visiting your website. Yes, screen. Yes, so browsers and screen resolutions. We talk about different browsers all the time in class. Yes, Internet Explorer. I don't know what their issue is, but you want to make sure you want to test your website in multiple browsers to make sure that they look the exact same way in one browser than they do in all the other ones. Because you don't want to have missing users who may use Internet Explorer and your website was testing it in Chrome and it looks really good in Chrome, but when you go over to Internet Explorer, it looks like absolute junk. So you want to make sure that you test your web page in multiple browsers, so everybody, no matter what web browser they can actually have a really good experience. Yeah, test on different screen resolutions, and this is especially with mobile devices. There's all different websites show up differently on multiple screen resolutions. They show up very differently. So if someone's viewing that website in in Chrome or on a mobile device, it has to look somewhat the same way they look on a full desktop monitor than what as if they would have use it or view it on a mobile device, whether it be a phone, tablet, iPad, what have you, or laptop or what have you. Yeah, some the ways that people have done is to actually make it look good with various screen resolutions is they have actually centered all the content on the page. So they have the whole page in the center, and they'll have the background colors on the left and the right. The colors be just straight colors, and they have it fixed to the middle. They have everything, all of the content fixed, so that anything won't move. And this is a good uh, practice to do or to use. However, when you're dealing with mobile devices, you can't necessarily you'll make sure that you make sure that your web page can adjust to the mobile device, and that's when a lot of people start using percentages instead of pixels. So basically the website adjusts to the web browser, not a web browser, but the device, and the website will be able to look much nicer in the in whatever device that's being used on or is being viewed in. Navigation design. So we mentioned a little bit earlier that you want to make sure that you have a navigation that user can is easily navigate. Some of the ways you can do that is you make sure that a lot of times either the navigation bar, the nav bar menu is at the top, and it has all the links to the certain different sections up there at the top. They also have something what they call breadcrumb navigation, and it's kind of hard to see if you look at this picture here on the slide, but you'll see this little where it says tours, hefty tours, and you see it leads all the way back to the home page. And this is what they call breadcrumb because it leaves like a little link to so you can actually go back to the websites you were before. And that's one thing that a lot of websites are using right now. You can use the graphics for your navigation. That's fine. A lot of people like to use uh, like put like different shade of bullets or the bullets, buttons. Um, Sometimes it'll have be buttons that may have a cover over effect on it. Yeah, and that's fine. But like I get one thing you want to do is you want to make sure that it does not affect the functionality and the purpose of the website when you do that. A sitemap is basically a page or section of the web page that has links to all of the web pages on your website. A lot of times commonly you'll see the sitemap down at the bottom, at the very bottom of the website, or they have a link to it, the sitemap, right at the bottom of the website. So you'll just all this is you see the link sitemap, and it show you all of the links to the web pages on the website all in one place. You can also add search. A lot of most websites nowadays actually have a search feature. So instead, if you don't want to actually go down and view the sitemap and look through all those links, you can just go to the search bar, type in what you're looking for, and you'll be able to find what you're looking for. Hopefully. Um, now skip content link. Yeah, this makes it the rise from back in the day when everybody used to have a flash introduction on their webpage, and I mean it was really cool flash intro, but it would basically take forever for it to load and to actually just walk through and actually view the website. So what people did is they put a link in there that says skip to content or skip to website, so you can actually get to the content faster and ignore all that other stuff or the introduction stuff that's right before you get there. I mean, it's cool, and you can watch it if you want to. But like I said, especially if someone is a frequent visitor of the website, they probably see, by watch, the introduction or the little thing or whatever the first time, and then after the first time, like, okay, now I don't want to view anymore. I'll go straight to the content. So that's where that came from. Wireframes. Now, for your project, you do have to give me a wireframe. All a wireframe is that you give me a basic sketch of what you want the layout, you want your page to look like. So you're going to give me, use it like a square, like here you have the header, where you what your menu is going to be, and basically give me where you want your context to be laid out on your page. Um, you can either write it out on paper. There's a lot of programs out there online that do helps you make wireframes that are free and very easy to use. So, but just know that wireframing definitely is a planning tool that helps web developers and especially web designers, help them out a lot. The concept of above the fold. So this is a newspaper term. So you want to make sure you want to make sure that you have all the headlines, the eye-catching stuff, right above the fold where you would fold the newspaper. So you have that, grab the person's attention, and then they can actually uh, bring out or pull out the newspaper in full or unfold it, and then they'll be able to see the rest of the paper. So that's where that came from. So you're gonna put most of your information or important information above the fold, just like you would do in newspapers. You don't want to have too much white space. White space is good, especially if you're dealing with different sections and you want to make sure you have a certain space so people can actually tell that it's a different section. But you don't want to have too much white space. And that's actually some issues that people have on their website that says it's just too. You may have too much white space and it looks kind of boring. Uh, you have interesting page layout. Nowadays everyone has the same layout. They have the header at the top, menu, text, then they have the footer down at the bottom. So, and that's fine. That's like I said, it's very common. But you may want to, when it gets to the content part, you may want to spruce up a little bit, or when it gets to the header, you may want to spruce up a little bit. But you can do some things with your layout. You don't have to stay within the I don't say the fold stay, with in general with the inside the bubble. Sometimes get out of the bubble. Yeah, so that yeah, showing you some of the difference of web page, the design layouts here. So now let me look at the difference, shall we? Yeah, so here, it had all this stuff in there, all the stuff in the middle. But then basically all they did was they actually added pictures in there, and they also changed the layout of the text that was in there too. But you notice they kept the header the same way, and they kept the menu the same way. But you can manipulate or position the way that you want your context to be any way you want. Just make sure that it's actually easy to read, and it stays in the it's easy to read, and that's it's very intuitive for the person. Yeah, so you keep going. So now I just keep going through different layouts. So now you can actually have most people nowadays actually put their uh, menu at the top, and it used to be an old practice that you can put your menu on the left hand side and the right hand side. That's fine. You can still do that. Um, but a lot of people like to go do their stuff at the top. Yeah, talked a little bit about fixed design, layout design before, and it's basically it stays in yeah, stays in the middle, or it's either in the middle or it stays over to the side, so it does not move at all. If you want to do a fluid layout, this is where it actually fills up the whole entire screen. Your website fills up the whole entire screen, so you don't have that unnecessary uh, background color in the back of it. Yeah, so one thing they have done is that they used to have .mobi websites, and developers would have to develop two different websites, one for desktops and one for phones or on phones or mobile devices. Now that's no longer the case because came up with the technique or the practice of responsive design. And I think I mentioned it a couple of times in the class, but basically what uh, responsive web design is, it allows the web page to ask the mobile device a question, basically, how big is your screen size? And by the response that you get from that they get from the website gets from the device, it automatically adjusts the web page, the contents of the web page to the to the desired dimensions for that screen size for the actual mobile device. And this is actually really cool. And we will talk about, and they do this with something what they call media queries. And we will actually play with media queries a little bit later in the book. But it's all of it is done through CSS. So you'll put the media query in CSS, and you'll say, okay, with this screen size, do this and this. If it's this other screen size, do this and this. And it can get with the media queries, your CSS file can get quite lengthy, but it will help you save a lot of time in the long run. Yeah. So one thing, some quick checklist for mobile devices. Well, because it is going to be on a smaller screen size, make sure that your website can actually fit nicely with and be able to seen very nicely on a small screen size. They yeah usually there is the one column layout, and they just have people scroll up and down. So you don't want to have a lot of people actually doing what they call the horizontal scroll over to the side. You want to actually make sure everybody goes vertical up and down. Yeah, I mentioned bandwidth issues. I mentioned bandwidth issues this whole entire time. Make sure that your web page, including your if it's a web page for a mobile device, that it's very low on bandwidth. Because, like I mentioned, you may have someone who's viewing your website on straight talk, whatever, and they have very limited data for their own data plan. So to make sure that they'll be able to enjoy your website like anybody else. Yeah, so descriptive alternative text. Now, before we talked about your alternative text, and you can put it in for images, But with a mobile device, you may want to be a little bit more descriptive because if it is a smaller screen size, and the person may not be able to actually get the full feel of it. And because it's a brief Instagram website, but it's built for a smaller device, you want to get rid of all other non-essential content. So if you had a picture of a beagle or something, or a picture of the house or whatever on a page, you may not want to put that on a mobile device because it's really not. It may not be essential to the content of your website. Yeah, I mentioned sponsored design, so we'll definitely we'll play with this. I think we're gonna play with, I think, in chapter 7. I think. But yeah, we're gonna play with it. Like I said, I love responsive design. I think it's a really cool concept. But it's through media queries, through CSS, you're able to tell or ask the device, okay, what your screen size is, and allow your website to adjust to the screen size automatically. Yeah, check. Yeah, web design checklist. So we talked about layout, talked about browser compatibility, um, talked about functionality, some of the graphics, colors and graphics you want to use in there. I think about the color code. Yeah, functionality. You want if you once that was the main reason you want to actually do a website. If you're going to do a website, make sure it's functional and so everybody can actually enjoy the experience. The content presentation. That's basically what you build a website for, and is to make sure that somebody can you put content out there and make sure it's really good content. And if you want to keep the person to actually read the content, you have to make sure that you keep them on the page. All right, haha. So in summary, this chapter 5 talked about web design and some of the best practices that you can do with web design. Talks about how you can actually make sure you think about your target audience when you talk about colors, talk about text size, talk about different graphics, because the website is for people to see. So you want to make sure you keep your target audience in mind. So they, like I said, if when they'll be comfortable viewing your website when they actually go there. All right, so that was chapter 5. You will have a quiz on chapter 5. You do not have any chapter 5 homework because I want you guys to work on your group project stuff. So you have no, however, you do have a quiz. The quiz should be up by now. If it's not, I'll get it up. If you guys have any questions about chapter 5, just let me know. And I will see you guys in class.